So next, let's talk about dual normal materials, or in a better way that they talk about ClearCoat materials. So this is a more expensive material because of the application of applying a secondary um, reflection value or a roughness value, as well as a secondary normal map value to the object. It can be very expensive because naturally, PBR roughness mellowness is already expensive as is for a normal shader. Applying a secondary amount to it can be a lot more costly, especially because you have to apply the application of normal vectors from a second normal map to it. So this can only be used very sparingly in certain cases. Um, I've worked on it before. In Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, we used it primarily for solar panels and in some cases carbon fiber. But in some ways, you can only have it for the close ups of the guns, and then anywhere else, it's usually turned off because it can be expensive. But how it works is it's basically you have your. Let me go up here. So basically, this is what a normal texture looks like with a very glossy roughness and a normal map underneath. This case, you probably this one does not probably have a normal map applied to it. This is the what you would call like the cheap way of doing carbon fiber, where there's no normal map, so you have a very smooth surface, and then you actually have the kind of normal map looking texture and the albedo. The lighting information would probably baked in like albedo or some kind of cheap normal vector filter that you can apply like in Substance Painter to kind of give the shadows and this kind of fake highlight. If you turn on the actual ClearCoat shader, it gives you a lot more definition and gives you the actual definition that comes with shadowing from the normal map, as well as creating the actual kind of highlights you get with a roughness to this object. So let's get started with it. What you have to do is you have to go in here and you have to actually go into your project settings because it's a setting that has to be applied. If you up here, you can um, type in normal, and it's normally in the engine rendering section. But again, if you just type this in, it should pop up. It's clear coat enables second normal. You check this. A window down here is going to tell you you have to restart because it has to now apply this information to the material itself. And then what we do is let's go into our material. And then let's do a environment underscore clear coat. We'll do it as CC and then emmat. So if you right click in here, and then let's change our shading model to clear coat. Again, we have this separated from the normal props one because you don't want to have every single material having this value to it. So there's also a link through the ClearCoat channels. Where is the link at? Is it here? It's somewhere on here. I cannot remember. There's a texture for the carbon fiber that they use. Oh, right here. Here's the textures. I'll link it in the class notes for this section so that you guys can download the clear coat. So let's go into here. And then let's grab our two textures. So here we have our carbon fiber texture. Let's load it up. As you can see, it's already working. Let's add a believe it's if you hit U, you get a texture coordinate. So let's apply this on here with a multiply node, and then we'll make this a scalar vector for tiling. Default to 1. Let's make 2 values. Let's convert 1 to a parameter. We'll just do this as roughness. Or actually, no, let's change this to ClearCoat roughness. If I can actually spell roughness. And we'll set it to 0.5. And let's plug him in. And let's apply this. Convert to parameter. Clear coat thickness. Default this to 1. And then naturally you want to just plug this guy into the normal map. But the thing you need to note is you don't want to plug this guy into here. You want to plug this guy into a other node. So let me finish applying this to our normal roughness value. Again, I cannot spell. Let's do 0.5. We want to go in here and let's type in ClearCoat. And we're going to need this, the ClearCoat normal custom output. So technically, this is not a normal output that applies here, but this is something if you want to add it as an extra, because not all these ClearCoat materials are going to end up using a normal map. So let's apply it and plug it in here, and let's turn that off. Okay, so now we have our ClearCoat normal map. Let's now apply our tiling to the UVs for this guy. And then let's create an instance and try this guy out. Where is it? Materials. Clear. Here we go. Create an instance. Change this guy to imat. Let's drag him in. And he got dragged over here. And let's apply all of these guys. So let's make him very shiny. As you can see, we don't have the normal map applying on top of this guy because you want to have your roughness be applied in different aspects. So here we have this ClearCoat roughness. It's applying a top kind of, if you want to think about it as glass over the normal material. If we had the if we had this normal map for the carbon fiber to show up, it would the normal map would be applied to the glass on top and not on the actual under layer clear coat. So let's do this like say 10. No, not 10. Let's do 20 or so. And then you can adjust your actual clear coat thickness of the actual glass. So like say 1 is the top value, you can do 0.5 and kind of make it a little bit thinner. So it kind of shows that it's like closer and closer to the top. You'll notice it with the Fresnel at least that there is a kind of very flat, smooth surface over. But you naturally kind of just want to have it as 1 so that it has a full highlight and everything else around it. You can also adjust the normal roughness, which is going to apply to the under roughness, to the actual like carbon fiber metal strips themselves. Actually, we also forgot to add a metallic value. So since this guy is going to be metal, let's just hit 1 and hit save. There we go. So now we actually have our metallic value for this guy. maybe we'll also change the roughness from a 0 to a 0.2, or maybe a 0.35. There we go. So, of course, it doesn't always have to be this carbon fiber one. Let me see if I can throw an example. So in Infinite Warfare, I worked on this ClearCoat shader for the like solar panels that we had made. Before, it did not have the ClearCoat value. It was just kind of like how it was before, where it's just a shiny roughness, um, but there's no kind of glass to it. This doesn't come off as kind of glass. It comes off as like an acrylic type of like really shiny plastic and metal. Here is when we added it over so that you can see that there's actual material layering. So there's actual depth to this. You have this glass on top, and then you have this kind of lower depth layer that has these metal and roughness values applied. And then, of course, we added like an iridescent shader to these like solar panel values as well to add a secondary highlight. So like here we have the normal highlight from the clear coat on the top, and then we have the highlight of the solar panel cells underneath. So that's like another way to show like clear coat and stuff. Another way is UE4 car paint clear coat. Because in a lot of values of like car paint, there's a secondary kind of lacquer to the paint itself. So you have these kind of, if you usually look up close, you have these like little speckles, and the speckles have like a metallic highlight to them, but they're not the actual smooth highlight you'll see. Like it's not like snow where you actually see the speckles all around. It's literally just the speckles that are highlighting underneath a very smooth surface. So clear coat just basically adds a secondary amount of layering to these guys. It's a very simple shader, but again, it can just be very expensive because it's not just going to be on a very big, smooth surface like this guy. It's going to be on very, very small things like guns, or sometimes it's applied to cars, or anything else that might use like carbon fiber, solar cells, or anything of that nature. So please make sure when you're working with something like this, use it very sparingly. It can be very expensive, especially if you think like, oh, it's just one small little value. It still has to calculate the normal information 2 times for this guy, because right now we don't have a normal map for this glass. But if you want to add some kind of texture to it where it reflects like scratches or pits inside of the glass itself, or even cracks to the glass, you would apply a normal map to that, and then maybe adjustments to the roughness for it. And having a texture with albedo, normal, ambient occlusion, roughness, metalness, and then having a secondary normal and roughness applied can be very expensive. So please, when you're working with this, just use it sparingly.